video, I'm going to answer your questions. Any questions you have, this can be about investment, finance, anything coronavirus related, economy related, better understanding of owners' earnings and begin to use it yourself and evaluate companies yourself.
How to think in probabilities, not certainty. And that's essentially what you have to do as investors.
Today I'm going to show you everything about owner's earnings, how to calculate it, why it's so important, what goes into it, why it's one of Buffett's favorite metrics to use, how I use it to evaluate every single company I look at.
Talking about specific value investing concepts and techniques.
We're going to talk about why you must read companies' financial reports and why you cannot just rely on the numbers. Jason here, and these videos on Thursday in case you guys missed the kind of introduction because on my end it was not showing up. In case you missed the introduction, these videos on Thursday, I usually talk about or in the last few weeks, I usually talk about the unemployment rate in the United States. New numbers come out on Thursdays, how it affects you, how it's going to affect you, how it's going to affect the kind of economy going forward. I'm getting a bunch of links here ready for you. Going to post them in the comments so you can read from some of the stuff I'm reading from and come to your own decisions on what you think is or is not going to happen or all that kind of stuff. I'm here to kind of help guide you through what's going on in the coronavirus because I've been in the investing realm or in the investing 13 plus years now. I've studied an enormous amount of world history, enormous amount of financial history, and I'm studying more constantly. So I'm here to help you kind of wade through these crazy times we're living through and hopefully help in any way that I can. Right now I'm posting links from all the sources I'm going to talk about today. Please let me know where you're watching from. If you have any questions, as always, when we get to the end of this, I'm going to answer any and all questions as well. I posted twice. Sorry, I'm dealing with some computer issues. I've been dealing with computer issues all morning. My internet is apparently being throttled incredibly badly today, and it's driving me nuts. So please bear with me in the technical issues we're dealing with. While we're waiting for people to come on, we're going to start here in a couple minutes after I can get these links hopefully all situated and sent to you. That's what's holding everything up here. But again, I'm posting these links from what I'm learning from right now, or some of the stuff I'm learning from right now, not only so I remember to talk about them, but so you can source everything yourself as well. Frankly, because there's a lot of bad and misinformation out there right now. So that's another reason I'm posting all this stuff. Okay, in past videos, post again. I've answered reader or viewers' questions about real estate investing, crypto investing in hospitality stocks. Do I think it's a good idea right now? Those kinds of things. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments and I'll get to them. Again, after this, I'm almost done posting links here. Again, hopefully my computer or my internet will work with me for a couple more seconds and we can get this kind of going. Okay, well, I'm going to stop there for now because these other links are taking forever. My computer keeps freezing up. Hopefully you can hear me again. Please let me know if you can hear me. If you cannot, please let me know, or I'll just be talking to myself the whole time, which is pointless. Okay, there we go again. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to talk about the news that came out this morning. 26 million Americans have now filed for unemployment. At least 26 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the last 5 weeks in the United States. And again, this also subtitle of this could be why the F is the stock market up again today. Pretty much every week I do these videos over the last 5 weeks, the stock market's been up almost every day with record numbers of Americans unemployed. Makes no sense. I've talked about that in another video, or a couple set of videos, as well as why I think the market's being manipulated right now. Because we are seeing unemployment in the United States that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. We're probably, by my estimates right now, at about 18 to 20% unemployment rate in the United States, which we haven't seen since near the heights of the Great Depression. All right, I'm done posting links now. All the things we're going to talk about are in the video today, so you can source them and read them yourself. Unemployment rates not seen since the Great Depression, since near the heights of the Great Depression. I think the absolute highest unemployment rate in the United States during the Great Depression was somewhere around 24, 25%. We'll probably be at that rate next week or the week after. Unemployment rates near historical levels in the United States. Yet the market is up again. As of about 5 minutes before this video, I checked, it was up about just under 400 points. Again, proof of why I think the market's being manipulated. 26 million Americans unemployed in the last 5 weeks. Near historic unemployment rate. Last time we saw this was in the, even close to this, was during the Great Depression, and the market's up. Makes no sense whatsoever. I've talked about this in another video as well, why I think the market's being manipulated, but I'm not going to get into that today. Because as you hopefully saw in the comment section, we have a lot of stuff to talk about specifically on how this is going to continue affecting not only you, but the world economy as well. So 26 million Americans out of work in the last 5 weeks. That's a low end estimate. Florida is, the state of Florida where I live, is allegedly hundreds of thousands of unemployment filings behind because their system collapsed. And New York, I think just yesterday, New York State announced that their unemployment system, internet system, completely collapsed because so many people were trying to file for unemployment. So the numbers are probably already up above 30 million Americans, would be my guess, at least, as of right now today. Historically bad economic numbers. Not only does that mean that these people are unemployed, these people either got fired, laid off, furloughed, temporarily laid off, whatever the terminology of the day is. And again, this keeps changing in the last 5 weeks. And again, at least. That means these people will potentially have to worry about losing their homes, losing their cars, not being able to pay other bills, their student loan bills, their credit card bills, get food for their kids. In a couple videos ago, I talked about how, yes, the United States should let people defer loans, should let people defer car payments, should let people defer home payments, should let people defer credit card payments. I've said that on a moral level, the United States, and again, I'm going to be specifically talking about the United States here before I get into that discussion, because the United States releases the most data. I found a little bit of data like 3 weeks ago about the UK unemployment, a little bit of data about the same time period, about 3 weeks ago, from Spain. Other than that, I can't find much unemployment data from anywhere around the world. So specifically, this is going on around the world, but I'm going to concentrate mainly on the United States in the beginning parts of this video because they release the most data. So getting back to my point. So 26 million people unemployed, at least. Probably the number is between 30 and 35 million realistically already. That would put U.S. unemployment at higher than any point in history, higher than even the Great Depression. So at a moral level, a couple of videos ago, I said that the US government and all these banks should let people defer their loans, defer their payments. But this leads to a problem because the banks operate on what is called the spread or the float. If you watch this previous video, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go over this real quick, but it's very important to the discussion we're going to have today. So I'm just going to go over this quickly. Banks operate on what's called the spread or the float. They can take money out here at 0.5%, for example, loan it to you at 1%. They make what's in between this, called, again, the spread or the float. Most banks' profitability margins are extremely low because of this, because they operate on the margin, on what's pretty much left over for them. Because of this, banks' margins are incredibly low. If banks are not getting paid on a monthly basis from credit card payments, home payments, credit card payments, these kind of things, and they're deferred, which again is the moral thing to do, the right thing to do. But if they are deferred, banks could, or most likely, if this goes on for a while, are going to go bankrupt, which leads to a further tightening because there will be less and less credit available for people to get loans, to pay bills, to keep their businesses open, to pay their people, all that kind of stuff. This entire thing will lead to a tightening of the economy if banks begin to start closing because there will be less credit available. This will negatively affect everybody in the entire world because, again, this is not just happening in the United States, this is happening worldwide. So yes, while that's a moral thing that the United States and governments around the world should do and companies around the world should do, it will lead in the short term to tightening credit and potentially lower credit available for, again, keeping people employed, paying bills, buying supplies, that kind of stuff. This will lead to a tightening of the economy. That's even more. This will, when this happens, and it's already begun happening, because JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America have already increased the lending standards required for a home mortgage, which has pretty much stopped the home buying process in its tracks. And this is just in the last couple of weeks that this happened. Home buying is pretty much stopped in the United States because of the new requirements required by these banks. 700 credit score minimum, 20% down. Of course, yes, you can get around this with some other loan programs, but again, if banks aren't loaning money in mass, that means the economic machine moves slower and is more sluggish, and there's less credit available for everybody because they get money in the banks, they loan it out to somebody else. Let's say your credit card payments and your home payments and your car payments, you go through, let's say, Wells Fargo or Bank of America. They take that money in, they make a percentage on it, a small percentage on it, they loan it back out to more people in the economy. If this entire process stops, the entire process stops because the banks don't have any money to loan. Yes, the Federal Reserve is trying to prop up the banks with putting more money in buying bonds and stuff like that, but they can't do that forever if people stop paying. The reason this is all important is because 70% of the United States economy is based on consumption, which is essentially people buying and selling stuff. And people are not buying and selling stuff right now, which is why the economy has kind of ground to a halt. I also said that yes, while this is the moral right thing to do to defer these kind of payments and not evict people, I don't know how you fix it. Because if the world's economy and these lockdowns and quarantines stop tomorrow like that, people will not go out in mass still. Until this week, that has been my guess. In one of the links, I believe it's the Asia.Nikkei, Nikkei, I don't know how you pronounce that, it's a Japanese word, .com, China retailers face hard truth. If you reopen, they won't come. So China has begun to reopen their economy. This is how we can kind of prove this out now. China's begun, they were the first ones hit probably last year sometime, November, December, January, early January 2020. They started to close down their economy. So they're a month or 2 or 3 ahead of the United States and most of the rest of the world. They have begun opening up their economy. People are not going to malls. People are not going to retail shops. People are not buying cars. The stats are frankly insane in China. 50% at least traffic is down in places like malls and supermarkets. An estimated 80% fall in car buying in China. Retail shops outside of places like malls are seeing an up to 80% drop from previous traffic. The Chinese economy is estimated to be based about 60% on things like manufacturing. And their economy contracted for the first time in the last 50 plus years in the first quarter by about 6.7% for the first time ever. Again, if you see my other previous videos, I don't believe their numbers for a second. I think those numbers are probably way worse. But let's say they're true. Chinese economy, 60% of their economy is based on manufacturing. Their economy contracted by 6.7%. 70% of the United States economy is based on consumption, people buying and selling stuff. So what does that mean for the United States? Could we see a 10 to 15% contraction in GDP? Yes, it does. That would be historically bad. Again, the United States economy in total, GDP, based on GDP, is about $22 trillion. So this is like cutting, let's say it's 10% for around just an even number. This is like cutting $2 to $2.2 trillion off the economy like that in the last quarter, really about the last month. That's like wiping an economy. Let's say, I can actually look it up, two sizes of economies. And I didn't think to have this up, so sorry, bear with me here, but this is important. So this is, if it's $2 to $2.5 trillion just wiped off the United States economy, this is like wiping an economy the size of about France. France is the 7th largest economy in the world. Their GDP is an estimated $2.7 trillion. So this is like wiping an economy the size of France off the map. And this is just in the United States. If economic output drops by 10 to 15% worldwide, that would be the entire world's GDP is estimated about $95 trillion. So that's like wiping an economy of about $9 to $10 trillion. So that's like wiping an economy the size of, there's not really a great comparison because it jumps. So that's like wiping the Japanese, German, and Indian economies, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th largest economies in the world, off the map. That means more people will become unemployed because more businesses will fail because people aren't spending money and buying stuff, which means businesses won't have cash flow, which means more people will file for unemployment, which means more poor people will be out there, which means banks will be paid less, which means people will be worried about paying their bills. And this entire cycle will repeat until things kind of get back to quote unquote normal, which I'll talk about in a little bit because I don't think things will get back to normal. I think this is a Great Depression-like situation in terms of how it will change the world and the world economy. If you've studied history at all, you know an entire generation that grew up in the Great Depression era for the rest of their lives, saved money, pinched pennies, were very thrifty, were very frugal, didn't spend on a lot of luxuries. I think this is a similar life-changing event for most in the world in terms of how it will reshape, maybe not my generation. I'm 33, maybe not my generation because I've been alive for the time before this where things were quote unquote normal, but maybe my kids' generation. My oldest turns 10 in November. middle daughter is 6 and youngest daughter is 2. Maybe their generation or somewhere in between, it will likely affect how they view not only not necessarily in their view, how they act when it comes to money and savings and cash flow and stuff like this. It will affect, I think this will affect how we do not only people's viewpoints in terms of how they spend money. I think this will affect the entire university system because more people are going to be homeschooling and stuff like that. I think this will affect the rapid rise of technology versus via things like this and Zoom and YouTube and stuff like that. I think people will be doing more and more stuff like this, even than they have. I think this will affect, at least in the short term. Those are more long-term things. I think in the short term, this will affect how we interact with each other. Here's a personal example. I help coach with 2 of my buddies, some kids' soccer teams, 5 to 7 year olds and 8 to 10 year olds. We've had the same group of kids for the most part, for other than a kid or two, for the most part, for a year and a half. So there's 3 seasons in a year. So that's like 5, 6 seasons, something like that. The next season was supposed to start in early April for us. Obviously, we're not doing it because of social distancing stuff. They want to start up in May at some point and run to June. Not only have we told them, yes, we understand the kids want to play and we want the kids to play and all that, but all 3 of us who help coach on those teams have told the league that we're not going to do it. Yes, we understand they need money. Yes, we understand they want to get the kids outside because they've been locked inside. Yes, we understand the parents likely want their kids to be outside because they've been, again, locked inside with them for months, potentially by that point. We've told them, the people that run the league, we understand what they're doing and we agree with it, but we're not coaching this season. Not only because of in Florida, that time of the year is stupidly hot. Not only it would be bad for the adults involved and the parents involved and the siblings involved that come to watch the games and the kids involved that are playing the games. It would be disgusting in Florida. It's disgusting that time of year. It's super humid. It's around, with the heat index, around 100, 105, 110. So we get that. We told them not only for that reason, but for me personally, I don't understand if the social distancing guidelines are still even somewhat in place, how it will be even possible to play. You can't play soccer with keeping a 6-foot bubble. It's impossible. The only sports that are really viable is things like tennis and golf and fishing and stuff like that you can pretty much do by yourself or do away from other people. Soccer, football, hockey, basketball, baseball, all these things, you have to be in kind of close contact with people. So I don't think by even the summer, getting back to my original point why I'm telling you this story, is I don't think things will get back to normal even if the economy's open back up. Again, this is being proven out in China right now. It will happen in the United States as well. I think, and I've said in previous videos, and this kind of lines up with the data from China, is that I think fewer than 20% of people will be comfortable until there's some kind of fix or herd immunity or vaccine or whatever the kind of solution for this is going to be with the coronavirus. I think fewer than 20% of people will go back to quote unquote normal and going out to malls and theaters and sporting events en masse. Again, previously this was my personal opinion. Now it's being shown in the data in China. If Chinese economy contracts that much in one quarter, again, first time in essentially since they were started releasing economic data in the 1970s, after the Cultural Revolution and Mao Zedong and the Communist Revolution, all that crap. First time in 50 plus years, the Chinese economy has contracted. I saw that, Nick. I'll answer that in a second. So, because that's crazy to me. It makes no sense. But I'll get into more details on that. So, if the Chinese economy is based 60% on consumption or 60% on manufacturing, sorry, and the U.S. and about 40% consumption, 70% in the United States is based on consumption, things are going to get real bad in the short term. Again, I think literally a life-changing event like 9/11. Nick, you and I grew up together. 9/11. I bet you can remember the exact place and time you were when you were at school or when you first learned of the Twin Towers being crashed into, because I can. I was in middle school. No, I was in high school, freshman year of high school. Remember Chad Bredigan, if you remember him, we lived near each other on the Air Force Base that we lived at. And he came and said the Twin Towers had been hit, and we all looked at him like, whatever, we don't know what you're talking about. We got to school, and we watched the tower hit, the second tower get hit by the airplane. I think this will be a similar type of event, kind of not maybe that graphic and that instantaneous, but I think this will be similar in terms of how it plays out over the long term for our kids' generation and how it kind of changes our perspective on things. Yep, Mrs. Freeman's class. So you remember too. Yep. So I think it will be a similar event drawn out over time. So this all leads to the economy contracting. But here are some specific examples of what that is leading to already. And again, the United States is, depending on the country, 1 to 3 months behind China, Europe, and stuff like that. So the U.S. is 1 to 3 months behind, and stuff like this is already happening worldwide. United States government plans to buy supplies from farmers and distribute the surplus to food banks. This went on during the Great Depression. Same stuff. Federal government bought, let's say, tomatoes or potatoes or hogs or meat or whatever. Same thing went on during the Great Depression. Distributed to food banks and people who needed it. Why are they doing that? Because if they do not support the farmers will go bankrupt, and the entire food supply of the world will be destroyed. That's why they are paying, I think it was up to $50 billion to support farmers. Because again, this goes with the gas, oil and gas stuff we talked about in Tuesday's video. Demand went up like this, and now it's just cratered. So there's a huge excess supply in not only oil, huge excess supply in food, and because people aren't going to restaurants, kids aren't going to school, people are eating at theaters. Coca-Cola, one of the world's largest and best run companies. Their earnings or their volume is the measure of how kind of the amount of, let's say, Coca-Cola cans. Let's say this is a Coca-Cola can. The amount of Coca-Cola cans they sold. Their volume down in the first quarter, 25%. This is one of the best run, best managed, best operating companies in the entire world. And their volume was down 25% in the first quarter. Most of the United States wasn't locked down in the first quarter until the middle of March. If this is what happens to one of the best run, best managed, best operating companies in the world, what is going to happen to a pig farmer in Iowa or South Dakota, or a corn farmer in South Dakota where I used to live? If there's not enough supply, prices will drop, farmers will become unprofitable. That will lead to massive food waste. That will lead to massive farmer bankruptcy, and that could lead to a massive disruption in the world's food supply. So speaking about pork and meat, pork producers are considering euthanizing hogs due to financial losses. In this article, they are going to pork producers in the United States are likely going to see a shortfall of up to $5 billion or more by the end of the year, due to people not going out as much, due to kids not going to school, things like that. Most farmers, again, don't make a lot of money. So if they in kind of total are losing $5 billion by the end of the year, they're either going to have to kill a lot of hogs, which again is enormous waste. I'm an animal lover, so I don't like that. I like fishing and hunting, but I don't want to see animals die just for no reason. If an animal is going to die, I was always taught, raised, and this is what I believe. If you're going to kill an animal, for example, I love fishing. Nick, you probably might have the same feeling. If you're going to kill an animal, you better eat it. Because if you're just killing it just to kill it, that's a waste. So, but these pork producers may have to do that to bring supply levels back into level with demand. Because if supply goes like this and demand goes like this is what you're seeing in the oil markets. This is why the oil markets are going so crazy. The same thing is happening in all commodities. I saw in another article the other day that the United States could start to see shortages of things like steaks and other meat. Not because there's a shortage necessarily, but because people are going to have to cut their production enormously to meet current demand. If demand goes like this and supply goes like this, things crash. Again, not only in the oil crash that we saw the last couple of days that I talked about on Tuesday, this happened in the Great Depression. I keep bringing up the Great Depression in these videos because not only have I studied an enormous amount from a kind of political and historical, but also an economic perspective. I think what we're dealing with here is a Great Depression-like scenario in terms of the pain it's going to cause people like you and I, but also companies, economies, and countries around the world. I talked about in the other video on Tuesday that the oil crash price, that countries that whose economies are mostly based on oil and gas, Russia, most of the Middle East, Africa, some African countries, Venezuela, these countries could literally collapse because of these low prices. Again, the same thing on a macro, that's a big macro level of countries. This is going to happen most likely to individual people like farmers and ranchers. Like we saw there, unless they kill 3 million animals, which again is incredibly wasteful and incredibly, frankly, awful to the animals. They didn't do anything to deserve that. Again, if you're going to kill an animal, it should be used. It shouldn't just be killed just to be killed, in my opinion. So this is going to affect entire countries, companies, individuals, cities. I saw an article yesterday that the Senate Majority Leader, I think Mitch McConnell, I think he's a majority leader. I can't ever remember if the Republicans still control the Senate or not. I think they do. He said that he agrees that states should be able to file bankruptcy. I don't think that's happened in United States history. I know cities have filed for bankruptcy. I don't know if states entirely have filed for bankruptcy before. Frankly, by his wording that I read yesterday, I don't even know if it's possible unless they kind of get permission from the Senate to do that. This is going to negatively affect us for not just the coming weeks or months or however long this kind of coronavirus pandemic lasts. That's another thing I'm going to talk about in a second. It's probably going to affect us for 3 to 5 years at least, in terms of the supply and demand getting back into shape and the kind of restructuring to large degrees of debt in the economy. Another example that I forgot to talk about earlier, Hong Kong. This also leads people going to malls and stuff less in China, is going to hasten the retail apocalypse that's been happening over the last 5-10 years. Retail apocalypse, for those of you that don't know, are the mass closures of retail stores. Think JCPenney, Sears, Macy's, kind of these big box stores that, frankly, people don't go to anymore. This has been going on for years. This is going to hasten that destruction as well. People aren't going to stores. People aren't going to malls. That leads to more unemployment. That leads to more people in fear. That leads to more people having to worry about paying their bills, which furthers the banking issue. These things are all connected, and because we are a global economy in 2020, frankly, we've been a global economy since the 1700s, but we're more connected now with things like the internet and Zoom and Skype and all social media and stuff like that. The world's economy has been globalized to a large degree since the 1700s. But people are worried about globalization now because, for example, Americans losing their jobs to people in China, then Chinese people are losing their jobs to people in Vietnam because Vietnam and Philippines because price is rising. This has happened for hundreds of years. But because we are so connected now and our supply chains, frankly, are so connected, this is going to be bad for pretty much all of us. There's a concept, I think it was embedded after World War II, called mutually assured destruction. It was mainly in terms of not going to a nuclear war, because if one power uses, the concept was, if, let's say, the United States was attacked by Russia via nuclear weapon, the United States would retaliate with war weapons and will lead to a global kind of apocalypse. They also, in all this, again, globalization has been going on for hundreds of years, but just recently, since World War II, economies have been more intertwined with each other as well. Just because of technology, but also because of this mutually assured destruction principle. This is why when the United States financial markets collapsed in 2006, 2007 period, the world's economy collapsed because banks and systems and companies around the world rely on U.S. banks. Banks failed. So that's what that kind of led to. The U.S. is by far the largest economy in the world by most estimates. If the U.S. has issues, the rest of the world is going to have issues. If China has issues, most of the rest of the world is going to have issues because of the supply chain and most of the stuff coming from China. This, again, all these videos, and I'm going to at some point make a compilation of them for those that are interested and give it away for free. But all these things I've talked about in all these videos are all connected. And it's going to get bad. Again, in the short term, it's going to get bad. In the long term, the United States will be fine. I say this in every video. In the short term, it's going to suck for pretty much the entire world. In the long term, the United States will be fine. But what happens to countries like India or the Philippines or Central America or most of South America or large parts of Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, large parts of the Middle East? What happens if these economies and things don't get fixed in places where countries don't have as much resources as we do here? That's going to lead to massive issues. I also keep comparing this to a Great Depression type situation because I'm learning a lot from Ray Dalio right now, reading his book. I finished up his book, Principles, last year. I'm now reading a lot of his resources online for free. I watched a video of his earlier that he did with TED, of TED Talks, and I'm reading his book, Big Debt Crisis, right now. So frankly, I can better understand what's going on because a lot of stuff that's going on, especially in the stock market, doesn't make sense right now. In his video that, again, I linked to the left, or at least on my screen, it's on the left, he talks about how he thinks this is going to 100% lead to a depression of sorts that will take 3 to 5 years to kind of situate. I tend to agree with him. President Trump and people in the administration are trying to be hopeful that this isn't going to come back. The coronavirus isn't going to come back in the winter, and if it does, it's not going to be as bad, and we're going to be more prepared. Frankly, I don't understand how that's going to happen. Because again, if you open up the world's economy tomorrow, I think fewer than 20% of people go out like they used to. I also don't think that this virus is just going to kind of go away in the summer and not come back. Again, previously this was just my opinion, but now more data is coming out of China and Japan. Wuhan, the kind of center of the outbreak for the coronavirus outbreak, where it supposedly originated, has reopened to large fanfare around the world in mainstream media. I was reading reports yesterday that at best, Wuhan is about 20 to 30% open because people are still freaked out about the virus. Japan, which was not hit hard during the kind of initial stages of the coronavirus, is being hammered now by the coronavirus. Japan is under its first state of emergency since World War II for the entire country because of this. And this isn't, I haven't been reading these from people or from government entities or major news websites. I've been following people on Twitter who are actually in these countries, in these cities. They say things are really bad in specifically Tokyo and Wuhan, China. Tokyo is being overwhelmed, allegedly, according to some of these people, with coronavirus patients and not having enough room and ventilators and stuff like that. That was the fear here in the United States. That has not happened. Frankly, I don't know if it will happen. I don't know. But I don't think the virus is just going to go away either. Like some of these people are predicting, oh, we'll be fine in the winter, or we'll be fine by next spring. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, based on my study of history, based on my study of science, I don't think that's going to happen. Frankly, because that's not how viruses work. I read an article yesterday that said the coronavirus has mutated 30 times already in, 3-4 months, 5 months, depending on if you believe China or if you don't believe China, has mutated at least 30 times already. I don't know what the answer is to any of this. I'm just trying to help you understand what could be coming and what is likely to be coming in terms of economics. I don't claim to be a health expert, but I've studied science an enormous amount. I don't believe, frankly, what we're being told a lot from not only the United States government, but governments around the world. Because not only, again, I don't like politicians. Personally, I think they're all liars, but also because they are incentivized. I'm a big believer in Charlie Munger's, Warren Buffett's right-hand man. Charlie Munger helped Warren Buffett become the person he is today. Helped run Berkshire Hathaway. He's a big believer in the power of incentives. These politicians right now and the people running the world are incentivized to minimize panic. Things will be fine. As long as you follow our instructions, things will be fine. We're not going to be overwhelmed. You can go back to work. And let's say states in the United States are already starting to open. Georgia, for example, and I think Tennessee was the other one, are planning to open in a couple weeks. That's fine and dandy. Again, I don't think people are going to go out. 70% of the United States economy is based on consumption. If only 20% of people are kind of going back to quote unquote normal, it doesn't matter what the government says. The market will not be there for goods and services because people will not be using excess money. They'll be saving it and trying to invest it when they can and save money to pay their bills and save money to buy food for their kids. Right now, that's what we're dealing with. People are worried about those things. They're not worried about taking another trip to Europe, although that sounds, in some cases, that would be great. People aren't worried about buying luxury goods en masse like they were from places like China and the Philippines and Italy and stuff like that. The government, doesn't matter what the government had to say. People, even in China, where China has enormous state control, they surveil pretty much their entire population. They watch them, they grade them on a score based on how good they are when it comes to how they treat and how they act and how they talk about the Communist Party. Even in China, where the government has enormous control, scary control, people still aren't buying stuff. Car sales down 8%, retail sales down, or retail traffic down at least 50%, and in some cases down 80%. I think we'll see similar numbers in the United States. I don't see how this is going to be a short-term fix and the economy is going to go back and the stock market is just going to roar again. Logically, it just doesn't make sense to me how that's going to happen. Because again, until there's some kind of herd immunity or vaccine that eradicates this coronavirus, people are going to stay away from other people, especially if you have kids. I have 3 daughters. Other than they got super excited the other day. My wife and my mom went to take my dad some lunch, and they went in the car and they got super excited just to go in the car because they've literally not gone anywhere else since this kind of started in mid-March. They didn't even get out of the car. They just stayed in the car. They just wanted to go somewhere. Or if you know somebody who has an underlying health condition. I am reasonably healthy, in good health at 33. I have underlying health conditions. Anytime I get even a minor cold, and again, I don't know if this is related to my dizziness. I've been told by several doctors this is not related to my dizziness. But somehow in my system, anytime anybody even gets like the sniffles in my house, I get horribly sick. I get by far the worst infection of anyone in the family or virus in the family, and usually ends up being a major sinus infection where I have to be put on antibiotics. I haven't been out of the house other than to go pick up some stuff, and I've stayed in the car since this happened because of those reasons. If you have grandparents living with you, if you have older people in general living with you, even if they don't have underlying health issues, I don't think people in general are that selfish to go out unless they have to. Again, yes, I know people are going to get stir crazy and want to get out of the house and stuff like that. I understand that. I 100% get that. But in mass, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's herd immunity. If it's herd immunity, if you see the terminology herd immunity used in on the media, what that means in a real world sense is that potentially tens or hundreds of millions of people are going to die. Because herd immunity requires an entire population to become I can't think of the word right now, it just left my mind. To become not inoculated, to become in contact with the virus to some degree, and that they become kind of immune to it. Think of like chickenpox when you're a kid. People, at least my generation, again, now they give a vaccine for chickenpox. But in my generation, if one of your friends got chickenpox, typically your parents sent you over to their house so you would get it at the same time. So you would kind of suffer through it and be done with it and become immune to it. That's what herd immunity is. The problem with chickenpox, or the problem with chickenpox versus coronavirus, is chickenpox doesn't kill you unless you have some major health issue. That's what herd immunity means. Again, chickenpox, unless you have some major, like life-altering, destructive health issues, chickenpox does not kill you. Coronavirus does. So that's the problem with herd immunity. So that's what, if you see what herd immunity means, I saw it this morning on an article based on Sweden. That's what it means. The entire population essentially becoming in contact with the coronavirus and becoming immune to it. The problem with that is we don't know if we can become immune to coronavirus. We can build up immunity. They know we can build up immunity to it, the scientists, but they don't know, for example, if we'll become immune forever if we get it, if we will become immune for a month or two, if we'll become immune for a year, if we'll become immune at all. They don't know. Everything I've seen, they don't know the answer to that question, which leads to another point in the openings in China and Japan. China and South Korea. Reports are that the coronavirus is being reactivated in people who have gotten coronavirus before. What does that mean? I don't know why frankly, I don't know why they use the term reactivated. It's confusing to people. But the reason they're using that is because, in my opinion, they don't want to scare people that they can get it again. What it technically means, the reactivation, is that they don't think they got it again. Again, think is the key word. The scientists don't think these people got it again. They think the virus just kind of came back and took over the immune system again. They don't think they got a new infection, or they don't think they got a new version of the virus. They think it just kind of lingered in their system. Either way, that's bad. That's, again, all these talks I'm doing, I'm trying to kind of build an entire thesis around them based on facts and data and experience and what I'm reading and what I'm learning from, to help you out in terms of what you should do in terms of your personal lives. Because ultimately, that's what it gets down to. What can I do for my wife, my kid, my husband, my parents, not only to stay safe, but make sure we don't become destitute, become economically poor. That's what I'm here to help with. The reason I'm talking about all this stuff is because it's important to understand what's kind of going on in the system. And I talked about this a little bit in the last video, is people don't think about these second, third, fourth, and fifth level effects. They think about, like, in my example from the video last time was when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pretty much was gleeful that the oil price crash and these oil companies are going to go bankrupt. What she didn't think of, yes, she thought this is good for the environment. Yes, it is. What she didn't think of is this is going to cause huge unemployment, huge defaults by people and companies, millions potentially around the world out of jobs, even more than there already are, and how this will affect the entire economy. So the reason I'm talking about all this stuff is because it's not just black and white. Most people will either be, you have to open up the economy right now, or the economy is going to collapse, or the other side is saying, well, then you don't care about people. There's a balance. It's not one or the other. We have to open up the economy, but we have to save lives as well. Again, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not as smart as some of these people, like Ray Dalio. I don't claim to be. But there has to be a balance. One or the other is not going to work. We're going to have to figure something out, or in one case, a lot of people are going to die. In the other case, the economy is going to collapse. There has to be some kind of balance figured out. Again, I don't know what the answer is. Based on history, this will kind of work itself out over, again, 3 to 5 year period. But the next 3 to 5 years are going to be weird. Frankly, I don't know how else to put it. Unless you study history, I don't know how else to put it. It's going to be weird. Again, I think life changing, perspective changing, how we do our everyday lives kind of impact. Again, and this is just in the coronavirus. This is the economic impact as well combined. These two things combined will change how we perceive the world, will change what we do, will change how we spend money, will change how we learn, all this kind of stuff. It's going to get weird. I keep saying, my mom keeps asking me what the latest crazy article that comes up. It's gotten weird really quick, and it's going to get weirder. But again, the United States will be fine in the long term. Short term, it's going to suck for everybody. Next year, probably plus, it's going to suck for everybody, pretty much worldwide. Some countries more than others, obviously. If you didn't watch my other videos about, specifically, I think it was the oil video, about the kind of short-term and long-term effects of what we're dealing with. It's going to get bad. Again, this is why in every video, raise cash, stay healthy. This is why I talk about these two things specifically. And again, I'll talk about those in another video, specifically the raise cash part, because the raise cash, when I say raise cash and still sell stuff on eBay and pay off bills and build a nest egg and build a savings emergency fund, I mean that, but I don't mean selling your retirement funds and cashing out your 401ks. I'll talk about all that because the nuance is important. The main thing I mean, though, before I get to that video, and that'll be probably next week, and I'll do that video, is raise cash. Because cash, if you have cash, it gives you options. It allows you to pay bills. It allows you to stay in front of things. It allows you to pay off bills if you have excess cash. It allows you to get food for your family, all this kind of stuff. If you don't have cash, you're going to have to go deeper and deeper into debt and get more and more trouble. This is what these companies are going to deal with. So stay healthy, not only for yourself, so you can make money, but also so you don't get your loved ones sick. Raise cash, again, sell stuff on eBay, consult, do stuff on Upwork, Fiverr, all these kind of sites. Everybody has a skill you can sell. Work to sell, make video courses and sell them online. Work to consult, do something to make money. And again, I'll get more into this next week for sure. But back to Nick's question from earlier. And if you have any other questions, comments, concerns about anything, let me know. Again, I love talking about this stuff, but I don't want to bore you. And frankly, this stuff is very important, but it's very complex as well. So if you have any questions, comments about anything that I talked about today, anything economics related, finance, stocks, investments, cryptocurrencies, weed stocks, real estate investments, anything, let me know and I'll answer them. First, I'm going to get to Nick's question though. They have closed fishing in Washington State, causing an uproar towards the governor. What's your opinion on fishing closures? Frankly, it doesn't make sense to me. I could understand to a degree closing like commercial fishing boats. Oh, let me get context before I get into this. I'm an avid fisherman. I live in Florida. Me and my buddy fish all the time. We go with our kids. We have entire setups worth of saltwater fishing poles, and we know an enormous amount about fishing. We used to fish all the time. I can, to a degree, understand the closing of commercial fishing boats because there's a lot more people on the boats. But even then, people still need to eat fish. So I don't even understand that once you kind of think it through. The personal fishing, I really don't understand. I mean, most people, Nick, maybe you can speak to this, but down here, I mean, usually you go with one or two fishing buddies and that's it. You're not in huge groups of people unless you have your kids. Obviously, you're not probably going to bring your kids out right now, unless it's just you and a kid or two. But most people down here, it's either you go by yourself or you fish with a fishing buddy or two, and that's it. So I don't understand why Washington is closing it. They haven't closed fishing down here, frankly, because it's a huge moneymaker and they can't down here. But logically, I don't understand. If you, and most people when they're fishing don't want to be right next to somebody either. So they're already kind of social distancing. They're 5, 10, 15, 20 feet away from each other, fishing in a different spot, casting and looking around and just kind of enjoying the peace. I don't even, me and Steven Lee, Nick, if you're still watching, he lives down here. Our families are very close. He's my fishing buddy that I'm talking about. When we go fishing, every time I get home, my wife's, every single time, what's Steven up to? I don't know. How's he doing? I don't know. We didn't really talk that much other than anything about fishing. This might be the same with you. So we don't even do that much talking when we're out there. We just kind of sit out there and enjoy the peace and enjoy fishing. I don't get it. Yeah, I agree. Lots of people, very few places get crowded, but still very easy to. Yeah, I logically, I mean, I don't get it at all. The commercial fishing I can see to a degree, but again, people need to eat, so I understand that. The personal fishing, I don't get it at all, and I can see why people are freaking out. If they did that down here, there would be big trouble. Because again, fishing, specifically in the Tampa Bay area, is probably up there with beaches and things like Disney World and tourist attractions for one of the biggest money makers, because we have allegedly some of the best fishing in the entire world in the Tampa Bay area. So yeah, I don't get it. I can understand charters if you want to either close charters, charter fishing, or limit the amount of people that can go on the charter boats. I can get that. But the personal fishing, like going to a dock or going on a beach or going in a river for your case, I don't get whatsoever. Or going in the bay for my case, I don't get it. Yeah, no, I literally, I can't even think why they would do that, other than they don't want people outside. which again makes no sense, even if you think about that, because being outside, if you're locked in your freaking house all day, you're going to go crazy. Trust me, I've worked from home for years now. If I stay in my house all the time and never left, as in can't even go to the backyard like they did in Italy. I have a student in Italy. He said you can't even go outside and this was a couple weeks ago, so it might have changed now. When Italy was at its worst, you couldn't even go outside at all unless you had a note saying you were outside for going to get medicine or going to the grocery store. That's going to drive people crazy. People are social animals from evolution all the way back. We are in groups of people or monkeys or whatever all the time. Here you can take your boat out but not fish. You can take your boat out but not fish. That's a huge tease. That's terrible. That makes no sense. That makes even less sense to me. That's so weird. But yeah, people are social animals. So if you can't even go outside, let alone see your friends, you already can't see your friends in person. You already can't hang out in person. So if you can't even go outside, people are going to go crazy, literally crazy. I'm not joking here. People are literally going to have mental health issues if they can't go outside. For example, one of the good things that I think Governor DeSantis has done here in Florida is they have said you need to social distance, and they've closed most things down. At least in terms of restaurants and hotels and theaters and stuff like that. Schools, most stuff is closed down. He encourages people. Actually, just yesterday, he did an interview. My mom was telling me somewhere. He did an interview somewhere, and they're encouraging people to go outside. Not only because it's nice in Florida this time of year, the humidity's not here yet, but also because if you're in the sun, studies have shown that if you get sunlight and vitamin D, you're not only physically healthier, you're more mentally healthier as well. I don't know about, again, Nick, you can speak to this if you're watching. Literally the only time I can relax, I'm horrible at relaxing. Anytime I try to fall asleep, no matter what time it is, no matter how much I work during the day, my mind races. My mind goes a million miles an hour. The only time I can literally relax is when I'm fishing. That's the only time I've ever been able to relax. Pretty much my entire life, now I think about it. Only time I can relax is when I'm fishing and concentrating on what I'm doing fishing, watching my pole, figuring out if I need to tie something else on, figuring out what I want to do with the weights and the different kind of setups. The only time I can relax, even a little bit, is when I'm fishing or my mind is racing. It takes me at night 30 to 45 minutes pretty much every night to fall asleep, and that's with meditating because my mind is just going crazy. So I agree. No, so when I go fishing, okay, let me rephrase that. If you've ever gone fishing with kids, my kids are great with the fishing, but it's not exactly stress-free or relax-free for a dad. Again, my kids are great, but it's still, you still have to watch them, especially in here. You got sharks, you got deep water. Some of the water just drops off in the bay. You got deep water, so you have to kind of watch them. You can't really relax. But if me and Steven, for example, just go out and go fishing by ourselves, I feel a million times better the next day. Not only physically I feel better, but mentally I'm like, holy crap, this was awesome. I just relaxed my brain for the first time in a while, and it feels amazing. And usually after that, a day or two after that, I am super productive work-wise. So I don't understand the wanting of people to lock down like completely. I don't get it. To me, that means that your government doesn't trust you to do what is right. That means your government is essentially babysitting you. If you can't even go outside. Again, I understand parts of the world, like up north in South Dakota where I used to live, it's cold and people probably don't want to go outside. But to completely bar people from going outside or doing something like fishing in small groups or by yourself makes no sense whatsoever. And Nick, when this is over, if you ever come down here with the family, let me know. Love to go fishing with you. That'd be awesome. And if I'm ever up there, that'd be awesome too. But yeah, if anybody has any questions about anything else, let me know. Either on here real quick, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes. But also on social media, if you have any questions, personal questions about things like budgets or stock investments or whatever that you don't want to ask here, let me know. I realize that a lot of stuff, again, I have to say this in every video because from these videos, you probably can't tell. But if you know me in person, always smiling, always happy, always optimistic, always looking for the bright side of things. But I'm telling you this as a friend because nobody else is telling you this kind of stuff in the media. And it makes me angry because people are only thinking about what is happening now today and what potentially could happen if things go 100% right. They're not telling you the real world kind of effects of how we are in large part, not only policy wise, as I posted a quote from about the immigration stuff. And I'll just tell you briefly. I'm reading that book, Big Debt Crisis by Ray Dalio. And I think it was September 1930, so the beginning of the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover canceled immigration. President Trump did that a couple days ago in the United States, or yesterday. It might have been finalized yesterday in the United States. A lot of the parallels economically and, of course, policy-wise with something like that are very scarily eerie to the Great Depression. That's why I'm telling everybody, raise cash, stay healthy. Because if you can do those two things, that gives you options. If you have the goal in this kind of stuff is to quote unquote stay in the game. In investing terms, that means not going bankrupt. For you personally, that means not going bankrupt or not having to take on a huge amount of debt. If you can stay in the game, you will come out from this crisis that we're dealing with even stronger than you did before. Because again, the United States will be fine in the long term. The world will be fine in the long term. There might be some major issues in the short term, but in the long term, the world will be fine. The United States especially will be fine. But if you can stay in the game and not have to take on huge amounts of debt or go bankrupt, you will become stronger as a person, but also economically by coming out of this as well. Because the people who have options, which in this case is cash that I'm talking about, not only can you stay solvent and stay out of bankruptcy and potentially pay off bills if you use your money right and become more financially strong, but if you become more financially strong, then you can invest money, which is where you build wealth. So again, I'm going to talk about the cash stuff and the investment stuff next week. I don't see any more questions right now. Thanks for watching, Nick. Thanks for the conversation. Whoever else is watching, thank you. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, email me or message me on Facebook or whatever. And I'd love to answer them. Nick, I know you're getting ready to have a baby. If you have any dad questions, let me know. Kids are awesome. They're a lot of work. Let me know. But yeah, seriously, if you have anybody who wants to learn this kind of stuff or learn about history or learn about finances or learn about what is likely to come or economics or anything, please share this with them. Because again, mainstream media is not talking about this. Most kind of off the beat media is not talking about this kind of stuff. And I want to help as many people as I possibly can with my knowledge and experience that I've built up over the last 13 plus years. Because the scammers have not come out yet, but they will. At some point, they do in every single crisis, and they will. And I want to help as many people as I possibly can avoid being scammed and help come out stronger from these crises we're dealing with. So thanks for watching. I should be back on either Saturday, possibly, or next Tuesday for sure. Again, I'm trying to get on a schedule. Hey, Pat, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get on a schedule of these Tuesday, Thursday is planned right now, maybe Saturdays possibly as well, depending on how the kind of news flow. But for sure Tuesday, Thursday, possibly Saturday, I'll let you know. Again, make sure to share this with as many people as you can to help them out in any way. And thanks for watching. Have a great day. Talk soon. Bye.